All right, so let's talk and learn about averages. Okay, so we can look at simple averages, weighted averages, and grade point averages as well. So grade point averages, your GPAs, right? So they are very important to you. So we're going to talk about that today as well. Let's start with simple averages first because, yeah, well, they're very simple. Okay, so in simple average, what we really do is that we take all the numbers that have been given to us, right? And then we see that what is the count of the numbers, right? Like how many numbers have been given to us, and we just simply divide, uh, perform the division, okay? And that is really our average, okay? We can look at weighted average as well, and then I'm gonna look at some examples of it, and that would just make the distinction pretty clear, okay? So weighted average, what I do is that I'll take sum of not just the number that I have been given, but a weight factor as well, right? A weight factor would usually be something like how many times that number appears, right? Or how many people can that number be associated with, how many entities, right? So that would be the weight of it, and then I'm just going to simply divide it by the total number of weights there were. Okay, so as I said, let's look at some examples, and that would just make it very clear for you. Okay, so let's say in Ontario Transport we have 46 drivers. Okay, and each of them, they are earning $20.5 per hour. Okay, so 46 drivers, and then we have 14 clerical staff, and they are earning $15. Okay, so the first entity, okay, they are drivers, and there are 46 of them, they are earning 20.50. Okay, clerical staff, there are 14 of them, they are earning 15. Okay, and there are 10 mechanics, they are earning 29 per hour. Okay, so if I'm trying to find the simple average of these three hourly wages, so I have been given basically three quantities, right? So one, two, and three, and I can let's find a simple average of it. What I'm just simply going to do is that I'm going to take all three numbers, 20.5, 15, and 29. How many numbers did I really have? I had three numbers, so I will divide it by 3, and it will give me the answer of 21.5. Right, so that's sort of the middle number among these three numbers that were given to me. Okay, that would be the simple average of it. So that would be it. In terms of weighted average, okay, if I convert the same problem into weighted average as well, now I have to consider the weight as well. Okay, the weight would be in this case the number of people who were taking that wage. Okay, so the drivers, mechanics, and clerical staff. Okay, so I'm going to multiply each of the uh, entity that have been given to us, and multiply it uh, uh, with the driver, for example, in this case. Okay, so 20.5 would be multiplied by 46 because there were 46 of them. Okay, 15 would be multiplied by 14, and 29 would be multiplied by 10, and all of them will be added up together. Okay, and then I'm going to add all of the weights together. Okay, so 46 plus 14 and 10, I'm going to add all of them together. Okay, uh, um, so to summarize, what I'm doing really here is that I am multiplying, okay, the number that has been given to me with the weight of the number, okay, and I am doing the same thing repeatedly with all of the numbers that have been given to me, right? Once that is done, then I'm going to find the sum of all the weights, okay? This is the sum of all the weights. And there you go. This gives me 20.61. Okay, so there's slight difference in this case. The difference can be quite large in different problems, but that's really what average and weighted average is. In average, we don't really consider the weights. We just simply take the numbers that have been given to us, and divide it by the number of those numbers, basically. Okay, and weighted average, we also multiply it by the weight, add them up together, and divide it by the sum of the weights. Okay, so now we know how to calculate weight and average, sorry, average and weighted average. Now we can also look at how to do this in Excel. Okay, so here I have a simple data set in Excel. Okay, so I have two numbers. Okay, let's say one of them is the weight, right, and the other is the actual number given to us. Okay, and let's find the average of it. So I have attempted to find it here. What I've done is just I've simply used the average function, right, and I've just simply applied that to the numbers that have been given to us. Okay, and I just found the average of it. Okay, so it's simple as that. So I have to, if I have to do it again, all I'm doing is that typing equals to, then AVER, right, that's the first few letters of the name of the average function. Okay, I'm gonna press tab. Okay, and now I will just simply select the range of my numbers, right? In this case it is A1 to A2, right? I'm gonna close the bracket. Okay, and I'm gonna press enter. There you go, it's 0.25. Okay, so that's the simple average. Now for the weighted average, I can either sort of do it manually or use the sum product function. Okay, so sum product is another function which can be used to calculate the weighted average. So let's try to use it. Okay, sum product. Okay, so here it is. Let's look at the description of it. It says that it returns the sum of the products of corresponding ranges or arrays. Okay, so if I provide two ranges or two arrays to this function, what it will do is that it will add, multiply first with the first one, second with the second one, third with the third one, and then it will add all of them up together and give me the result. This is what sum product will do. Okay, so if I go into the sum product function, provided the first array, so let the first array be this. Okay, so this and this, and then comma in the second array. Okay, so it will be this, and we can keep on going, array 3, array 4, right? It's We can go on. So first and second, let's see what is the results of this. If I close the bracket and I enter, I get 14, right? Yeah, it makes sense. So if I multiply 10 with 0.2, right, I will get 2. Yeah, I will just simply get 2. If I multiply 40 with zero point 0.3, I think I will get 12. Yeah, so I'll get 12. So 12 and 2, and 12 and 2 would be added up together, and I will get 14. So this is how really sum product function works. Right? It will add the corresponding values of the two arrays that you have given to it, and then it would add, multiply them and then add them up and give you the answer. Okay, so I got 14 here. Okay, now to find the average, the weighted average, this will not be my answer because I still have to divide it. Okay, divide the value, whatever I got, in this case is 14, by the sum. Okay, so I'm going to say sum. Okay, sum of the weights. Okay, so sum of the weights. Okay, wait. Okay, so I'm going to um, find the range, sum of the weights. So it's going to be this. Okay, and I'm going to close this bracket and I'm going to press enter again. Okay, so what I get is, let me just to be absolutely clear, I'm going to enclose this in a bracket. Okay, this is just like for to be careful because I want to make sure that it calculates this value, right, the sum of this, and calculates this value separately, and then it is divided, right. In this case it was not necessary, but you will find out in that more complex formulas, it is usually necessary to include these brackets explicitly. Okay, so I got 0.28. So that is my weighted average in this case. So my simple average was just 0.25, and weighted average is 0.28, and this is how I really found it. Okay, but what if I didn't want to use sum product? Could I, just do it sort of manually? So I talked about this in the beginning. We can definitely do that. What I have to do is that I would have to now manually multiply this. So I would take the first value, which is a1, right, the first value of the first range or first array, I'm gonna multiply that, okay, with the second one, right? And as I said, it's not necessary, but it's really useful if you just have brackets there, okay. 1 second. So I'm going to include the bracket here as well. Okay, so I'm multiplying A1 with C1, and then I'm adding it with what? Another start of the bracket. Uh, so A2 with C2, I'm going to close this bracket. Okay, and I would keep repeating that for depending on how many values I have. Okay, I'm going to keep repeating that, and once I have done that, I'm going to divide it by, again, a bracket is a good idea, a sum of. Okay, I can just simply take a sum of the same range, so this part would remain the same as the previous method. I'm going to close the bracket. Okay, and there you go. Okay. All right, so turns out I forgot one thing in this, okay? Um, we have talked about order of operations previously, okay? And why it is very important to keep track of this. And looks like the same thing is happening here. The value should be 0.28, right? Because that's what we found using some product. But in here, I've used the same thing, but manually, and I'm getting 2.24. If you think about why am I getting that, right? So let's see how many operations am I performing here. Okay, so I am having an addition, right? And I'm having a division. Okay, and of course this is in brackets, the sum of it, and this is in bracket as well, so this will definitely happen first, right? In PEMDAS, right, versus parentheses, so the parentheses will be dealt with first, right? So we're not worrying about this, but whatever value I get from this multiplication, right? What should happen to it first? Should it be added to this, the first value first, or should it be divided by the sum first? And it would matter. It would, change our answer depending on what will happen first. So if we look at the order of operations, PEMDAS, right? Division is way before addition, right? So we have multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction, right? So division is before. Division is sort of has higher priority. It will happen first. Okay, so what it's doing is first dividing it by this number, right? So basically one of the number is basically getting divided, not both of them, and that is why it is very important. So to solve this, what I'm going to do is that I will make sure that this addition, this right here, this addition happens first. This addition happens before the division. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply explicitly enclose that in brackets, okay, right here, and that will ensure that this happens first. Yeah, so now if I press enter, yeah, so there you go, I got 0.28, so now the answer is correct. Okay, so I hope you understood the importance of uh, order of operations and why it's so important. And it's fine, you might forget sometimes, but you have to be careful. You have to check your answer again to make sure that there is no mistake in terms of order of operation. So to simply, if you want something to happen out of the order, right, you want it to happen before the something else, you should enclose it in brackets, and of course that will then happen first. Okay, so this is about how to do averages and weighted averages in Excel. Okay, so I have this a similar sheet for you, which does pretty much the same thing with the same data. Okay, so this is for your reference, and you can check it.
Okay, so let's also learn about grade point averages. Okay, GPAs, they are really important to you, so let's talk about them. Okay, so what a GPA really is that it's just a weighted average of all the grades received. Okay, uh, um, it's just an weighted averages. I keep saying averages, but it's really average. It's a weighted average of all the grades received. Okay, so in order to calculate it, what we really have to do is that we have to find a quantity called a quality. the total quality. Okay, so let's look at it. But in order to find the total quality, we first have to get another number, and that number is the numerical equivalent of your grade. Okay, so you receive some grades, you receive A plus, B, these kind of grades. uh, so they always have a numerical equivalent, which is definitely needed in order to calculate the GPA, right? Calculate the quality, and the quality then calculates the GPA. Okay, so let's look at the numerical grades of Durham College as an example. Okay, so if I click on this link, okay, it will take me to this document which goes on and explains the equivalent and numerical equivalents of all the grades. So if you have a D, okay, that means your numerical equivalent is 1.0, right? A B means 3.0, right? And A means 4.5. A plus means 5.0. Okay, so all we have these numerical equivalents, and these numerical equivalents are really important in order to calculate the quality. Okay, and once we have the quality, then we can calculate the GPA really easily. Okay, so let's look at that. Okay, so as I said, we have we need to calculate the quality. Okay, and that is in here. And in order to calculate the quality, we need the numerical equivalent. Okay, we just looked at that as well. Okay, and there is one more thing. We have credit hours called course credit hours for every course. Okay, so what we need to do is that we need to find that as well. What is a credit hours? Okay, so we will then multiply the credit hours by the grade points. Grade points really just mean the numerical equivalent of your grade. Okay, we're going to multiply them up together, and then once we have that, okay, we're just going to simply once we have that, it is called quality points, right? It is called quality points. And once we have that, we just simply divide it by the total number of credit hours, and this gives us the GPA. So this is exactly same as essentially weighted average, right? So um, we will look at some example, and that will just clarify it for us. Okay, so just to summarize, it is just weighted average. uh, First thing, we have to find the quality, right? And to find the total quality, we first have to know the numerical equivalent of your grade. We need to know the credit hours of your course, and once we have that, we can find the quality simply by multiplying them together. And once we have the quality, we can simply find the credit hours. Okay, so let's look at this example. Okay, so we have an example. We have, let's say, John, and John obtained the following grades. So it's just an example from last semester. So we have communications for IT, and the grade in this case is um, 3, right? So this is the GPA hours, that's the course credit hours, and the grade is 3.5. The numerical equivalent of B plus is 3.5. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is that in order to find the quality, what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply the grade points, right, by the GPA hours. The GPA hours is really your course credit hours. So 3.5 by 3, I get 10.5. Uh, in this case, I have a C plus in Introduction to Databases. So I'm going to multiply that uh, um, by 4, the numerical equivalent of it. So these are just really numerical equivalents. Okay. Okay. So and that's a 10, and I'm going to keep doing that. So at the end, I will have some you know, total of this. So the total of quality points. Yeah. So the total of quality points turns out it is 54.5 in this case. And if I just simply sum up the GPA, right, the GPA hours, which is the total credit hours of the course, all of all the courses in this semester, they turn out to be 21. Okay, so now to find the GPA, having these two numbers, I can simply just divide them up. So I'm going to divide 54.5 by 21, and I get 2.59. So the GPA for John John's GPA for winter 2016 is simply 2.59. Okay, so the important thing to remember here is that we have a numerical equivalent of every grade. Okay, and we have to find that numerical equivalent of every grade. And once we have that, we also need to find the credit course hours. Okay, we need to multiply the numerical equivalent and credit course hour, and this will give us the quality points. Once we have the quality points, we will sort of add them up together to find the total. Then we will also find the total of the credit hours. Okay, and then we simply just divide them up, and we get our answer. So this is really all about GPA. We also have something called CGPA, that's your cumulative GPA. It's nothing more but just really an average or a mean or a mean of your total GPA across your different courses. So it's really the GPA of your whole program in a way. Okay, so you combine your GPA from the 4 or 6 semesters that you have, and that really, and you take a mean of it, and that is just your cumulative grade point average. So I really encourage you to go ahead and make this sheet in Microsoft Excel. Okay, if you can make that, that would be really good. Just make it. That will give you a lot of practice, right? Maybe you can also use it for yourself to find your GPA, right? So I strongly suggest you to do that. That will give you experience of working in Excel and putting these formulas as well.